Hi, welcome to the podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start conversation on Unit 21, Expansion of Professional Education and Private Sector. And our topic is Concerns regarding Private Sector Participation. We have been discussing in the previous sections the need for the participation of the private sector in professional education and the expansion of this area as a result of the entry of the private sector. Although participation of the private sector is today the need of the hour, nevertheless, certain concerns are expressed regarding the rapid growth of educational institutions under private management. In this section, we shall discuss some of the major concerns. The first one is underrepresentation of weaker sections. Expansion of educational facilities cannot be deemed to be satisfactory unless it is holistic. People from the marginalized sections of society are still to catch up with the rising trend in enrollment in institutions offering professional education. Students from rural areas, those belonging to backward communities, and female students are still behind when it comes to proper representation of these in these institutions. Women's participation is still below 50% at all stages of education and in institutions offering professional education. It is no better. Besides lower enrollment of women, another trend being noticed is the relatively much lower enrollment of girls at the higher secondary level and above in the science stream and in technological courses. As per the data given for enrollment in engineering or technology or architecture by levels and sex all over India by the Ministry of Human Resource Development in 1971, there were 84,025 male graduates in these areas while the female graduates were only 820. In 1998, there were 22,85,137 male graduates in these areas, while the female graduates were 57,958. The level and sex-wise enrollment data given by the MHRD reveal that in India, in medicine, including allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurveda and Unani, in 1971, total number of male graduate, postgraduate and doctorate degree holders were 72,205 and for females it was 18,742. In a time span of 2.5 decades, that for males rose to 97,591 and for females it rose to 42,383. In the case of agriculture and forestry, in 1971, the number of male graduate, postgraduate and doctorate degree holders was 24,934 and for females it was just 177. But within 26 years, women fared much better than before, and the number of female graduate, postgraduate and doctorate degree holders rose to 3,362, while for male students it was 41,738. In 1971, the number of male graduate in teacher education program was 34,798 and female graduates were 21,234. In 1998, the number of male graduates was 64,416 and female graduates were 48,857. A similar trend with lower enrollment figures for women in comparison to men is observable in the field of business management, journalism, law, library science, physical education, etc. From the prevailing data, it is clear that there has been indeed be expansion of professional education and enrollment of women in professional institutions has also increased considerably, but still a lot has to be achieved to attain parity between genders. The next point is skewed distribution of professional educational institutions. We have seen that the number of educational institutions offering professional studies in different states of our country have grown considerably. Now let us study the statewide distribution of professional institutions in the year 2002 and 3. In some of the states, there are hundreds of professional educational institutions, while in some states there are as few as one or two. There has thus been a lopsided development in this field. There is a greater number of institutions in the southern region of the country, but much less in the northeast region. This reflects a regional imbalance. Now the next point is quality of education. As we have been discussing earlier, there has been phenomenal growth in the field of professional education with the opening of a number of private institutions providing education in technology, engineering, computer sciences, medicine, teacher training, etc. Concerns are being expressed as to the quality of education that is being provided by many of these institutions. It is a general belief that private schools usually offer quality education. The higher fees charged by the private schools do not deter parents from choosing them because of the option about the quality of education. In the field of higher and professional education, however, such generalization cannot be made. Unlike private institutions, there are more sought after at the school level. The reverse is true for higher education. Private institutions are seldom the first choice of those aspiring for higher and professional education. Even today, many institutions of excellence in the sphere of professional education are run by the government. Premier institutions of engineering, technology, medicine, management, etc. enjoy a great degree of autonomy but are nevertheless under government management. There are allegations that the quality of education offered by many private professional educational institutions are not up to the mark in spite of the hefty fees charged by them. It has been alleged that unlike government organizations like the IITs, IIMs, engineering colleges at Roorkee, Jadavpur, and many others, and also many private aided institutions that are provided quality education, there are several unaided private institutions that are not providing quality education due to the lack of proper infrastructure and facility. It is further alleged that in the field of technical education and engineering, the amount spent per student per annum by the IIT is satisfactory. That spent by the regional college is comparatively less, yet does not violate the AICTE norms. But the amount spent by several self-financing institutions is much less than that stipulated by AICTE. Such institutions have failed to enhance the quality of professional education, and the growth in the number of such institutions could result in serious decline in the educational standards. Similarly, allegations have been made against the several private teacher education institutions. There are allegations about the undermining of quality due to the mass enrollment and lack of adequate facilities in several of these institutions. Such allegations, however, do not imply that the growth of self-financing institutions should be discouraged. Rather, the professional councils have to effectively monitor and supervise them. It is to be ensured that if the self-financing institutions are generating surplus funds, then they are spent on the development of the organization. As stated by Das Gupta, Secretary Urban Affairs and Employment, the NPE 1986 laid special emphasis upon the qualitative as well as the quantitative development of technical and management education. Guidelines were issued as to the establishment of linkages among the concerned agencies, manpower assessment, cost effectiveness, modernization, removal of obsolescence in laboratories and workshops, etc. It has been further underlined that the quality of the infrastructure with laboratory facilities, that of the faculty, research faculty, etc. of many private professional institutions is not up to the mark. The faculty has to be adequate in number and possesses the right type of qualification. Provision of regular in-service education is also needed for professional growth. Teaching methods adopted should be encourage independent learning, innovations, creativity, problem solving, etc. The laboratories and workshops too need modernization. Research and extension services should also be encouraged in these institutions. These institutions also need to develop self-renewal capacity. It is also necessary for them to network among themselves with other related organizations and industries within the country and abroad. Such networking with provision for the sharing of human and material resources and administrative experiences, transfer of credits, launching of joint programs can lead to the capacity building of these institutions. Networking and multiple utilization of the infrastructure will also lead to the optimal utilization of resources. You may be feeling why the onus of providing quality education should be on the private sector when there are serious concerns regarding the quality of education provided even at government-run institutions. As we have already discussed, it was reported that the concern has been expressed about government medical colleges which were once the pioneers of surgical techniques but are today struggling to keep pace with the rapid technological advances. The archaic syllabus and the techniques and outdated infrastructures are taking a heavy toll of surgical training, education and patent care, and as a result they are losing out to private medical institutions. Therefore, concerns regarding quality are there for both government and private institutions. However, as stated repeatedly in this unit, the expansion of the field of professional education owes a lot to the private sector. The number of government institutions in certain areas is outnumbered by private ones. Therefore, lowering of standards by these institutions will adversely affect the concerned area. It has been rightly pointed out by the Mukhopadhyay that the biggest challenge for the private sector and the biggest reason for it to enter the field of education are not merely to deal with the huge number of aspirants but merely to provide quality education. There are certain private university institutions that are models in catering to quality while maintaining quality. Therefore, professional educational institutions have to maintain quality, and the private sector, being new entrant in this area, more is expected of them. Here we wind up this conversation, and thank you so much for choosing this podcast.